I want to play you the first of these South Park clips and get you to react.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
Hey, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
Holy shit. He said what?
Sorority girl, actress, influencer, victim. Yeah, that's totally me!
Meghan Markle has never been a stranger to headlines, but what recently erupted after a now infamous South Park episode aired is far beyond the usual tabloid fare. The animated satire, known for sparing no one from its sharp tongue, targeted Meghan with brutal precision, depicting her as a fame-obsessed, tone-deaf figure clinging to a narrative of victimhood while navigating lavish wealth and calculated branding. But this time it wasn't the parody itself that made the loudest noise. It was Meghan's fiery reaction to it. Reports suggest she was so outraged that she demanded the episode be removed entirely, a move that ignited far more backlash than the cartoon could ever have done on its own. In the episode, Meghan's fictional alter ego Maxilla is portrayed as a self-absorbed, out-of-touch media figure who demands privacy while chasing camera crews around the world. The portrayal mirrors the real-life contradictions critics have pointed out in Meghan and Prince Harry's public image, a couple who have stepped away from royal duties for a quieter life, only to launch docuseries, memoirs, and podcasts that continuously push their story into the spotlight. The episode lampoons this hypocrisy with ruthless accuracy, mocking their calls for privacy while building personal brands on constant media attention. Maxilla stomps around demanding silence while shouting her truth, an animated exaggeration that to many viewers felt disturbingly familiar. Rather than ignore the jab or shrug it off with humor, Meghan reportedly reacted with fury.
Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines?
The couple have been begging for privacy, and South Park has done a parody of
her legal team, according to inside sources, considered possible actions to have the episode pulled, and there were whispers of behind-the-scenes pressure campaigns aimed at discrediting the show. But the damage was already done. In an age where attempting to censor satire only magnifies its reach, Meghan's response poured gasoline on the fire. Her reaction, seen by many as proof that the satire struck a nerve, became its own spectacle. Social media lit up with commentary. Pundits and media figures debated not just the cartoon but what Meghan's outrage revealed about her approach to public life. What stands out isn't the cartoon's exaggeration. It's the startling truth embedded in the comedy. The writers framed Meghan not as a villain, but as a character blinded by her own obsession with public control. Her carefully curated image, her TED Talk-style interviews, her overproduced lifestyle brand, all became targets. And for a woman who's built her public platform on polished activism and high-minded values, the cartoon cut deep. The satire mocked not just her contradictions, but her inability to see them. When Meghan's response escalated into what insiders called a meltdown, it wasn't simply a reaction to a joke. It was, in the eyes of many, an unwillingness to engage with criticism at all. Throughout the episode, the fictional Maxilla character is seen making demands for silence while simultaneously chasing clout. She's shown as being disconnected from the average person's reality, dishing out performative compassion while living in extreme wealth. In one segment, she fumbles through a cooking show that looks eerily like Meghan's failed Netflix project.
And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family, so you're a journalist.
Never.
They couldn't have imagined being made a laughingstock by the cult cartoon South Park.
Critics of her lifestyle brand have long accused her of being more about surface than substance, and South Park didn't hesitate to take that to the extreme. The parody went beyond personality. It skewered her projects, her podcast, her marriage, her ambitions. It even poked at the perceived imbalance in her relationship with Prince Harry, depicting him as a muted sidekick to her domineering presence. Instead of weathering the satire with grace or humor, an approach many public figures use to diffuse controversy, Meghan appeared to try to smother it entirely. Her attempt to silence a cartoon didn't come off as protective or dignified. It came off as tone-deaf. Worse still, it confirmed many of the criticisms being leveled against her. An aversion to dissent, an overreaction to critique, and a glaring lack of self-awareness. If she had simply laughed it off, the episode might have been forgotten in a few weeks. But by trying to control the narrative, she gave it legs, and a much larger audience. What's more telling is how this episode fits into a broader trend. Meghan has built her brand around being misunderstood, attacked by the media and unfairly scrutinized. And while some of that narrative holds weight, especially considering the venomous British tabloid coverage she endured during her royal years, it's also become her default defense. Every criticism is met with accusations of bias. Every joke is labeled an attack. It's a strategy that once earned her sympathy, but in the post-South Park landscape, that sympathy seems to be wearing thin. The real issue lies in the contradiction the satire laid bare. A public figure who demands privacy while monetizing personal trauma. Meghan's memoir-style podcast interviews, Netflix documentaries, and appearances have increasingly leaned into a carefully orchestrated brand of empowerment. But that brand often lacks authenticity. The content feels scripted. The conversations are polished to the point of sterility. Even when discussing hardship, there's an unmistakable undercurrent of marketing. And that's what the cartoon targeted. Not Meghan as a person, but Meghan as a product. And then there's Harry. The episode didn't spare him either. Once known for his rebellious charm and humor, South Park portrayed him as muted, neutered, and directionless. A man adrift in Meghan's world. The satire implied that he's been swept into her mission, often at the cost of his own authenticity. Critics have noted that his memoir Spare was not only deeply personal but read like a confession poured into a PR strategy. South Park exaggerated that perception for laughs, but the underlying sentiment resonated with viewers. That Harry has become a shadow of the prince the public once embraced. At its core, South Park's episode wasn't just a roast, it was a reckoning. And Meghan's furious attempt to suppress it only deepened the message. The harder she pushed back, the more audiences felt the cartoon had nailed the truth. It revealed a disconnect between how she sees herself and how she's increasingly being seen. For someone who's trying to rebrand as a global humanitarian and cultural influencer, this backlash is more than a nuisance. It's a warning sign. The fallout has also exposed deeper questions about her future in the entertainment world. Can Meghan handle the unfiltered reality of fame outside the royal cushion? Can she accept criticism without collapsing into outrage? Can she adjust her brand to feel more authentic and less contrived? These are the questions now being asked not just by fans, but by industry insiders who once saw her as a bankable name. Netflix, Spotify, and others have already started stepping back from projects that seemed promising on paper but failed to deliver on screen. Now, with South Park throwing a satirical grenade into her carefully controlled image, Meghan's road forward looks more precarious than ever. Ironically, the satire she wanted silenced has become her most talked-about moment in months. It's sparked renewed scrutiny. It's dragged her contradictions back into the spotlight. And worst of all, it's made people laugh at the very thing she takes most seriously: her message, her mission, her image. What was meant to uplift has now become material for late-night jokes and animated mockery. The power of satire lies in its ability to expose, and in Meghan's case, what it revealed was a carefully constructed narrative built on shaky ground. Her critics argue that she's more concerned with controlling the lens through which she's viewed than actually evolving in response to public feedback. Her allies claim the attacks are misogynistic, rooted in racism, and unfairly targeting a woman who dared to step outside a centuries-old royal institution. But even among those who once rooted for her, there's growing discomfort. The South Park episode simply pushed it into mainstream conversation. What had been whispered across comment sections and quietly discussed in podcasts is now being shouted from animated rooftops. If Meghan Markle wants to rebuild what's slipping away, she may need to stop treating every critique as an attack. She'll need to face the reality that in the world of fame and influence, backlash isn't just a threat, it's a rite of passage. How she navigates this will define whether she emerges with renewed purpose, or fades into the echo of the very cartoon she tried to erase. Because in this world you don't get to edit the satire. You just have to learn how to live with it.